All right, so let us look at the liver. The liver is divided. It's very important for various functions. So, for example, we have the breaking down of toxins. It is also responsible the for the regulation of blood glucose. It is also involved in the immune response, and then it is also useful for the maintenance of homeostasis. And not only that, but the liver is important in a lot of different functions. For example, it has a store of macrophages. It deals with the breakdown and the formation of amino acids, and also it deals with the removal of alcoholic toxins. Moving forward, we can see that it's very important to know about the location of the liver. So let us see where the liver is located. The location of the liver is mostly in the upper region of the entire the abdominal quadrants. So we know for the fact that there are four abdominal quadrants, and it is mostly located in the right hypochondria right there, and it goes all the way into the epigastric region and extends into the left hypochondrium. So those are the main region where it is found. The liver has a lot of surfaces. Now let us look at the surfaces. We have the superior surface, so that's the superior surface right there, and we have the two coronary ligaments right there. And then we have the anterior surface. So the anterior and the superior, and then we have the right surface, and then we have the left surface. Then we also have a complicated inferior surface too. So these are all of the surfaces. It's also important to remember that most of the anterior and the superior surface of the liver is fused, so we can say that the anterior and the superior and the lateral side of the liver is fused, and most of it superiorly is covered by the diaphragm. Now, let us just get this diaphragm out of the way in order to get a more better view of the superior surface. So, taking the diaphragm out of the way, we can see that the superior surface, so the superior surface right there, is made up of the coronary ligaments. So we have the two coronary ligaments, the superior towards the lateral side and the medial side, we have the two superior coronary ligaments. And then we can see that there is also the inferior vena cava projecting outwards. And laterally right there where the cursor traces the liver is the bare area of the liver. And the bare area of the liver is where there is no peritoneal covering. So that is where we find no peritoneal covering, and it's quite strange because most of the liver is retroperitoneal. And those are the two coronary ligaments right there. So that is the anterior surface right there, and most of the anterior surface is covered by the diaphragm. And the diaphragm separates the anterior surface from the pleura of the lungs and the three costal cartilage. So we have the 8th, 9th, 10th, and the 11th costal cartilage. So that's the diaphragm, that's the right lobe of the diaphragm, and then we have the all of the cartilages that come above it. Another thing we can notice is that if we take out the entire diaphragm outside, we can also notice that the anterior surface is divided into two lobes, the right lobe and the left lobe, with the help of the falciform ligament. So that the ligament that you can see right in between is known as the falciform ligament of the liver, which diverges into the two coronary ligaments above and forms this small ligamentum teres at the inferior portion. Now let us look at the posterior surface. Now I'm going to rotate let us look at the posterior. I'm going to rotate the liver in such a way so that you can see the posterior surface. And you can notice how close the posterior surface is to the inferior surface right there. So it's important to know that it's important to distinguish the posterior surface from the inferior, and the posterior surface is much more superior as compared to the inferior part. And then we can notice that we have the coronary ligaments. So we have the superior and the inferior coronary ligament, and the meeting point of the two coronary ligament forms a triangular ligament right there. So that's the triangular ligament. And towards the left side, we have the triangular ligament to the lateral triangular ligament. We can see that. Lastly, let us take a look at the inferior surface of the liver. So the inferior surface of the liver is starting from the superior aspect of the inferior. So I'm going to just rotate it like this. So as you can see how I'm rotating it. So that's the inferior portion from the superior part of the inferior border. We can see that we have the ligamentum teres right there. And in continuity with the ligamentum teres, we have the ligamentum venosum, or the venous ligament that's found on the inferior side. So that's the venous ligament right there, venous ligament. And then we have the porta hepatis, so that's the porta hepatis. And then lastly, we can see that at the most inferior part, okay, so that's the gallbladder there, and it's in the impression, there's an impression for the gallbladder. And then there's the inferior coronary ligament right there. We also have two important lobes. So the first lobe that we're going to be seeing here is known as the quadrate lobe. So the quadrate lobe is there. So that's the quadrangular lobe that's adjacent to the gallbladder. So that's the gallbladder, and adjacent to it we have the quadrate lobe. And inferior to the quadrate lobe we have the caudate lobe. So that's the caudate lobe right there. So the quadrate and the caudate lobe. And then we have the right and the left lobe. As you can see, that's the normal anatomical division. The inferior part of the stomach is in relation, the inferior part of the liver is in relation with a lot of organs. So the first thing we can see is the duodenum. We also know, naturally, we know that the gallbladder is in relation with the liver. And then we have the other part known as the lesser omentum. You can see that the lesser omentum and the duodenum is in close association with the right lobe of the liver, especially the superior part of duodenum. Then we have the lesser omentum that goes and attaches itself to the porta hepatis of the liver. So as you can see, the porta hepatis right there, inferiorly we noticed it previously. And then we have the inferior vena cava too, that's also in close relation. Then there is the bile duct and the cystic duct, of course. And lastly, we can see that, we have the falciform ligaments, but that's the peritoneal remnant. And sometimes we can see it's not really, it's not visible here, but there is the the um, the small intestinal tract. So we know that the small intestine and the large intestine, they're like movable, and sometimes when they're not, they're movable. So whenever a person lies down, the entire thing comes upwards and attaches itself it does not attach, actually it moves between the duodenum and the inferior part of the liver. So we can say that the hepatic flexure is one of the, so the hepatic flexure is one of the relation of the inferior part of the. Okay, so basically, if you look at a typical liver, you can see that it's divided anatomically into two parts, namely the left. So this is the division, which divides it into the left lobe and the right lobe. The right lobe is much more bigger than the left lobe. And inferiorly, like if you look at it behind, you can see that there is a quadrate lobe, and there's inferiorly to the quadrate lobe, we have the caudate lobe. So the quadrate, and the caudate lobe. But apart from that, it's also important to divide the entire liver into parts based on functionality and based on a much more important way of division, which is according to the venous supply. So it is important to look at this diagram here. So this diagram here is much more definitive of what we are expecting. So we know that the inferior vena cava and the branch of the inferior vena cava known as the portal vein is the major vein that is going to be supplying the liver. And there is a division of the entire liver into two parts, namely the lateral side, and then we have the medial side, or the right side, So the right side and the left side, or the lateral side. So the left side is divided and into four parts. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it goes in a clockwise direction. So it's going to be the part 1 right here, and then part 2, and then part 3, and then part 4. So as you can see, I'm moving in a clockwise direction. And simultaneously, there is like a division between the two inside the lateral part, or the left part, and this part is divided by something known as the umbilical fissure. So that's the umbilical fissure right there. So on the right side, we can find the same kind of arrangement, but in the counterclockwise direction. So we have four parts here, namely the fifth part, the sixth part, the seventh part, and the eighth part. Now notice how I went there like that. So in a counterclockwise direction, so 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's how the entire division of the liver takes place, and further division takes place with the help of the right portal fissure. So we're going to be looking at this structure one more again, with this line being the medial line. So this part right here is known as the right medial sector. And this part right here is known as the left medial sector because they're close to the midline right here, as you can see. Then we have the other two sides known as the lateral portion. So this is the left lateral sector because it's opposite the median sector. And this is far away from the median side, for the medial side. And then we have the right medial sector, which is also far away from the medial side. Now, that being said, yeah, that's all that you have to know for the division of the the functional division of the. Let us take a look at the arterial supply of the liver. The arterial supply of the liver is mainly done by the hepatic artery. And before we look at the hepatic artery, let us remember which are the major branches that give off the hepatic artery. So the hepatic artery comes off of the abdominal aorta, and then a part of the abdominal aorta is known as the celiac trunk, and then from the celiac trunk we have hepatic artery coming off. So the hepatic artery is divided further into the right branch and the left branch. The right branch is then further divided into an anterior branch and a posterior branch. So the anterior branch supplies segment 5, 7, and 1 naturally, and the other branch supplies, or the posterior branch supplies segments 6 and 7 respectively. So let us take a look at all of this structure on the atlas so that we can sort of visualize how this entire supply takes place. So approximately at the lower border of the T11 of the T12, so this vertebra right here is a T12, and approximately at the upper border of the L1, we can find the celiac trunk right there. So that right there, so this branch, this small branch, is known as the celiac trunk. And coming one of the branches, it has three major branches. So right here we have the gastric branch, and then we have the other branch, and then we have the splenic branch right here, the gastric branch, the splenic branch, and then lastly we have the hepatic artery right here. So the hepatic artery comes off and divides into various branches. So that's the parent branch right here. So this branch right here is the parent branch. Firstly, divides into the gastroduodenal. This is the gastroduodenal. We remember that starting earlier, we studied while studying about the arterial supply of the stomach. We remember that this was the gastroduodenal artery that supplied the major part of the duodenum and the stomach. And then we have this known as I think this is the short gastric. So yeah, no, this is the right, yes, this is the right gastric artery, not the short gastric artery. The short gastric artery comes off somewhere from, so that's the right gastric artery, okay. So the short gastric artery comes off somewhere from here. So from here, the first branch is the short gastric artery, then we have the splenic, and then the hepatic. So the hepatic artery gives off the gastroduodenal, then we have the right gastric artery coming off from here, and then the hepatic artery that comes off of the celiac trunk is known as the continuity. The continuity of it is by the proper hepatic artery. The proper hepatic artery diverges, as you can see. I don't know if it's really possible for you to see here, but you can see that there are two branches, two major branches of this artery that one can notice. The hepatic artery proper going off into, okay, so yeah, right there we have a right and a left branch. So right and the left branch going on into the porta hepatis. So this right there is the right hepatic artery, and that one is the left hepatic artery. And another thing to consider is that the right branch of the hepatic artery also gives rise to the cystic artery that supplies the gallbladder. Okay, so the cystic artery that supplies the gallbladder. So moving forward. Okay, so let us look at the supply here. So for example, let us see, for example, like this is the hepatic artery. Then out of the hepatic artery, we have the hepatic artery proper. And this hepatic artery proper divides itself into the right and the left hepatic artery. So as you can see that this is the left side, and that and and this side is the right side of the liver. So the right branch of the hepatic artery is going to go and supply the right branches, so the right branch of the liver. So this right branch is going to be divided into, so it's going to be divided into the anterior part, so anterior part and the posterior part. So anterior part naturally is going to be before and it's going to supply the fifth segment and the eighth segment. And some parts of it is not really common, but some part of it diverge and also supply the segment one. So the segment one right here. And then the posterior, so the posterior branch is going to go and supply the sixth and the seventh. That being said, there's a similar bifurcation of the left one, out of which the anterior and the posterior is going to be supplying to the segments respectively. Let us take a look at the supply of the liver. Now, the liver is supplied in really weird manner. It is quite different from all of the, because normally, like in a normal organ, the normal supply will be somewhat like this. So basically, there's going to be the organ, and then there's going to be the blood going inside, the oxygenated blood, and the deoxygenated blood will be coming outside of it with the help of a venous system. But in the case of the liver, it's different because we know that the inferior vena cava is the major branch that takes off the deoxygenated blood from the lower part of the body and brings it to the heart. But then the inferior part, the inferior vena cava, ends at a particular point, and the extension below the vein, the major part of the vein that drains the parts of the body further below the liver are usually given to the liver with the help of something known as the portal vein. So the venous supply of the liver basically goes on like this. So there's the the GI tract, everything below the GI tract from the gastric tract, the venous blood from the gastric tract goes and drains into the liver parenchyma with the help of the portal vein. And from the liver parenchyma, the blood is then drained into the inferior vena cava and then to the heart, the deoxygenated blood. Next thing we can notice, let's look at the portal vein. So the portal venous supply consists of the portal vein, and we're going to be looking at the inferior portion, the inferior branches of the portal vein, because the portal vein is a tube-like structure that approximately measures about 8 centimeter. It has superior branches, so we have superior branches, and then we have also inferior branches. So we're going to be looking at the inferior branches first. So the first inferior branch that we're going to be looking at is known as the right gastric branch. After that, we have the splenic vein. Then we have the pancreaticoduodenal vein. And then, lastly, the superior mesenteric. Now let us look each one of them on the atlas. Alright, so as I said before, you can see the venous system, the venous drainage of both the liver and the lower part of the GI tract here. So this one is the inferior vena cava, and this is the portal vein. So let us look at the inferior branches of the portal vein first. So the portal vein, these are the superior branches which we're going to be looking at later, and these are the inferior branches. It starts approximately from here. So the first branch is known as the right gastric branch. So as you can see, this branch right here is known as the right gastric vein. And then we have the splenic vein. So this right here is known as the splenic vein. Then more inferiorly, we can see that there is don't consider this because this is the branch of the inferior vena cava. So the splenic, after the splenic, we have the one where we concern, there are a lot of different branches too, but the one that we're going to concern about here is this the pancreaticoduodenal vein, so the inferior part here. So and then we have the superior mesenteric. So the continuity of the hepatic portal vein, the continuity is with the mesenteric vein below right here, the superior mesenteric vein to be more precise. Okay, so this is the superior part of the portal vein, and the superior part of the portal vein divides into two further parts. So we have the right hepatic vein, and then we have the left hepatic vein. The right hepatic vein further divides into the medial and the lateral parts. The medial part supply the fifth and the eighth segments, and the lateral part supplies the sixth and the seventh segment. Now let us look at the segmental distribution onto this diagram. This diagram is much more clear. So for example, if so I'm going to draw the vein right here. So for example, if this is the vein, there is going to be a medial branch that is going to supply the fifth and the eighth, and then there's going to be a lateral branch that's going to be supplying the sixth and the seventh. Now, let us take this a look at the same thing inside the atlas. So you can see that this is the portal vein, and coming off of the portal vein, we have the left and the right hepatic veins. So the left one goes and supplies most of the left lobe of the liver. So all right, so that's going to be the left lobe of the liver, and this is going to be the right lobe of the liver. The right lobe, as you can see, the right branch is much more smaller. It's only 2 centimeters in length, and it supplies most of the medial and the lateral quadrants right here. And the left one supplies most of this part.